I'm going to say one statement immediately, and just trust me, it's accurate. Believe every single thing you have heard.
What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Yo, what's up, guys? We are back, and today we're talking about Dune Part 2. I was lucky enough to see it yesterday in IMAX in the most glorious way possible. And trust me when I say, and I'm just going to get this out of the way, I promise I won't say it again, you have to see this in the theater. If you have the opportunity to see it in IMAX, do it in IMAX. If you only got the opportunity to watch it in Dolby and hear the insane notes of Hans Zimmer's score, at least do it there, but minimum do it in a theater, because I swear on all things holy, Dune Part 2 being one of those things, you won't get another opportunity to do this in the next decade. This one's a real one. This one's great. So let's talk about it. Dune Part 2 follows the aftermath of Dune, the fall of House Atreides. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Freemen while seeking revenge against the conspirators that destroyed his family. Holy F, man. So I'm going to be very transparent immediately, caveat and preface everything I'm about to say by letting you guys know and being fully transparent. I have not read the original Dune book. I do not have reference to that book. I do have reference, though, to things that I have found out recently that it inspired, such as Game of Thrones, such as Star Wars. And let me tell you, when people back in 21 were talking about how Dune Part 2 is this generation's Star Wars, they weren't lying. This is absolutely, and to quote Christopher Nolan, Empire Strikes Back. And let me be clear, Empire Strikes Back was Dune Part 2. Like, this movie, if Dune was just a nice little gallop through the park and was slow and methodical and compelling, this movie is Darth Vader revealing that it's Luke Skywalker's father. Like, I'm not joking. This movie's epic in every sense of the word. This movie's incredible in every sense of the word. And people are calling it a masterpiece. You know, I'm hesitant to do that. But, you know, I'm not going to disparage what they said. This movie's like truly something special. And to experience it on the largest screen possible is this is not a hyperbole. It legitimately is a religious experience, like both literally and also figuratively. Like, there are things that this movie explores, and if you found Dune Part 1 remotely compelling, it takes the cerebral of Dune Part 2 and adds action to it. Like, literally, and also, again, figuratively. There is so much stakes in this movie that comes across a 2 hour, 46 minute film that I'm like, I could have watched 5 hours of this. And in fact, thinking about Dune Part 1 being also 2 hours and 40 something minutes, I cannot wait until I can get home and watch, 6 hours of both of these things combined. Like, it is such a massive epic in every sense of the word. Denis Villeneuve is, I'm going to say it, and I probably won't be the first, and I know I will not be the last. He's the best director we have working today. And anytime this man has something coming out, I don't care if it's about a documentary of a kangaroo in Australia, I'm going to watch it. Because dude just finds a way to make it compelling. It doesn't matter. And this movie is no different. So let's talk about some of the characters. Timothée Chalamet. I'm not a Chalamet hater. I'm also not a Chalamet lover. But dang it, if we're not talking about Timothée Chalamet's Paul Atreides in the same way that people talk about Luke Skywalker in 10 years, the world has no hope, because the people are not interested in stories. Paul Atreides is going to be a pretty massive character in a decade from now. And I will say this, like, I personally have not read the book, but watching this movie, I want to go read the book. But then I face the problem of, like, do I want to read the book and ruin the next movie? And so, like, that paradox is the worst thing in the world. So let's talk about Zendaya. She was barely in the last movie. You saw nearly everything she was in the trailer. Dude, she's like, this is Paul Atreides in Chani's movie. Zendaya and Chalamet have this movie on their back. She's in this. This is their movie, and everyone else is just in it, figuratively. Like, actually true. She's so good in this. If Chalamet has the movie on his back, then Zendaya is the heart and soul of this movie. Now, I've heard critiques from people who have read the book, don't necessarily love some things they did with the character. I can tell you, as a person who has solely watched the movie, it works on every single level. I think that the things they do with her character is so incredibly, like, compelling, and I'm going to try to just, like, it's going to sound like I'm just saying the same things over and over again. I'm not going to deny that, but I'm also just know that I'm actively in my brain processing words, so I'm not spoiling things for you guys. Just keep that in mind. First of all, let me just say this too. Like, this is the best I've ever seen Zendaya. Like, 100%, bar none, no questions asked. The way your character is written, I mentioned that there are some religious aspects to this movie. A ton of undertones in this movie about that. And the way they handle some of the beliefs between the Freemen specifically is really, really interesting. And you see a lot of that specifically with Zendaya. And holy cow, like, I could just watch a movie surrounding that. And I'm so glad this movie exists because it explores it so incredibly well. One of the thoughts that came to mind while watching this was like, dude, I love sci-fi Game of Thrones. So one of the first things I did when I got home was I looked up, what came first, the Dune book or A Song of Fire and Ice. I found out Dune came out 31 years before Game of Thrones. So let me present you with this. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, then there's no way you're going to dislike this movie. Like, there's just no way. So here's why. The way I have it, like, conceived in my brain is this. If Dune, the book, inspired Game of Thrones, the book, which is true, then Game of Thrones, the show, is the reason we got Dune Part 1 and 2. And the way they navigate that and explore that and capitalize on that, Denny is the best guy working today. Like, bar none. It's not close. Like, the ideas that he's able to explore because of Frank Herbert's movie, he does them justice. I truly believe that as a person who has not read the book. I truly believe that this movie is an epic in every sense. Get to the largest theater, please. Last but not least, I wanted to talk about Rebecca Ferguson. If I could complain a little bit about Dune Part 1, it's that I didn't understand Rebecca Ferguson's, like, motivation, right? Holy crap, dude. Oh my God. Like, the depths that Rebecca Ferguson goes to, I did not realize she could go to. If there was a singular person in this movie that I was impressed by the most, it was Rebecca Ferguson. There are things that she does in this movie, I'm like, what? And let me be clear. Again, I am staying away from things that could spoil this movie, so I'm going to be very vague. There are elements of Dune Part 1 where I did not understand. They very much, I say this as a compliment, they very much seasoned some things. So when Dune Part 2 could run, it would frickin' run. Like, it's frickin' Usain Bolt on the track. Like, it hits really hard. And Rebecca Ferguson's character is one of those things, I think. Oh, one other thing. Like, quick shout out to Austin Butler. Everything you've heard about him, it's true. That's all I'm going to say. Last but not least, the third act of this thing, inject it into my veins. People will talk about Endgame, rightfully so, as being one of the most insane, like, last 60 minutes of a film in general. I promise you, Dune Part 2 is up there. Like, the last 90 minutes of this movie is incredible. It's straight dopamine. I'm not exaggerating. This is not hyperbole. It's truly that great. If you liked Dune Part 1, if you even slightly liked it, If you had some problems with it because it was slow, pacing was awkward, wasn't a complete movie, give this one a shot. I think it's going to elevate part one, and part two certainly elevated because of part one. It's a really great double feature. I watched them both this past week, and I said this with part one, and I'm going to say it with part two. Dude, I cannot wait to find out the next chapter in this thing, because it's truly a generational story, and they handle it with so much care, so much precision, and it's only like the way you see it come to screen, you totally get that. So with that being said, if you have had the opportunity of watching Dune Part 2, let me know what you think in the comments. Do not leave spoilers, because we don't want to spoil this movie for people. It's really that great. It's really that important. And if you have not seen it and you were expecting to see it, drop an emoji. What's your expectation levels? It helps the algorithm. Anywho, I will see you guys next time. Adios. Let the frickin' spice flow, baby.